Now, if you have a question, can you please raise your hand and shoot your question? Okay, we have Haruna. Okay, let's do it this way. Let's type our questions in the chats. And then if your hand is raised, so I'll do that. I'll alternate between a raised hand and then the questions in the chat. So let me unmute Haruna and he can ask his question. Haruna, go ahead.
All right. Good evening once again. And thank you very much for the presentation. It's actually well to the time, and we are grateful. Yes, my question has to do with information as to how to start, especially the so-called Big Six you mentioned. If one wants to start any of this, can we get some basic information as to how to build housing? For instance, if I want to go into chicken, maybe an idea as to the space for one chicken so I can multiply the number that I want to start with, or into goat farming. What space will be enough for maybe 10 goats, so we can do the math for any number that one wants to start with. Equally, if we can have some ideas as to quantity of feed, so that even from the onset, we have some ideas. If you are going into this, how do you prepare for feeding? I think these are the two things I think will help us start housing and feeding. Thank you very much.
Okay. Haruna, thank you so much for the question. The truth is, when we run the trainings, normally if it's a 3-day training, we spend I think it's day 2, we spend that on feeding. The types of feeding, calculation of the feeds, the brands that are out there, what your crude protein is, how to determine what is lacking, even from looking at the beds. If the eggs are cracking, what is missing. So it will be nearly impossible to be able to give you all that information here. There are 2 things. One, you can look up the next training we have and join us for that training, or you can do a deep dive into research. There's so much information out there. We will crystallize it during our trainings, but it will be impossible to give all of that about housing and so on, especially when we have less than 15 minutes to go. So this was kind of giving you a roadmap to the various things that you should consider and look at. And yeah, so that information is out there. Maybe after this, if you sent me a message, we might be able to organize or point you in the direction of some material that gives you the housing and feeding requirements for what you want. But I won't be able to do that now. That's why we've even broken it according to animals, because the feeding of
Okay.
goats is different from the feeding of chickens and the feeding of pigs and so on. But it's a great question, and thank you. All right.
Thank you. I think the pointers are okay.
All right. So I think I have Justice hand is raised. So let's get Justice. Let me get Justice. Okay, Justice, let's hear you, please.
All right. Well, I'm grateful for this training, and at least I can say that I've learned a lot. So, what I want to ask is about is just a little bit concerned about what my brother asked earlier. It's about the feed, and I want to know whether there can be a way we can locally produce our animal feed. Because I can say that I'm having a pig farm,
Mm-hmm.
and the feeding is my problem.
Yeah.
Because where I'm located is a challenge to me. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can even buy some feed that it does not give you the results you expected. And sometimes you realize that we have to even keep our pigs for about 2 years, getting to 3 years before you can sell and make something. And with that,
Really?
looking at the cost, yeah,
Wow.
it's not
Okay.
easy. So that's the problem. And sometimes there are some diseases or conditions, sometimes you call the veterinary officers to come look at it because my male pig was having a problem. I called the veterinary officer to come and look at it. He told me that this disease, this is the first time of he seeing it. Instead of him to also do research and see, and I spent about 1,500 on that piglet that I bought.
What was the
Now
condition
it
of the
is
pig?
there. Well, I'm not a theoretical man to use the right terms, but there, this in the penis, you see that there's some water there. So it's like the urine doesn't come out. So if you want it to come out, unless you hold it and press before the urine will come out. So the man looked at it and he told me that it doesn't kill the animal, but rather making the animal to reduce the size. So these are this is my challenge, and I want to find out
Where
whether
are
there
you
can be a
located?
way that Nandom, Upper West
Nandom.
region.
Okay.
Yes.
When it comes to feeding of pigs, if you don't condition your mind that you are feeding them like broilers, you can't get them to the right. Ideally, you should be able to get your pigs to 40 to 50 kilograms in 4 months. That means if your pig delivers, you should be able to push out the pigs in 4 months. In Ghana, 5 months. Now, what happens is that unless you are willing to take a big gamble and feed them well, it ends up costing you so much more. So what I would say is that, first of all, you must, and that's why we normally tell people, gather the feed before you bring the animals. The other thing about pigs too is that you judge your feed before you cross the females, or else you will have so many females you cannot feed. The fact that you have a female doesn't mean you should cross her. You do your budgeting and realize that for this month, I can feed only 15 pigs. So the other females that are there, I need to make sure that I'm either selling them off or keeping them without crossing them. So those are some of the things that cost people these things. The problem you are talking about, I think I have an idea of what it is. If you send me a message after this, I know a very good vet who likes playing with these things. They may be able to give you some good solutions about it. But when it comes to pig farming, and for all farming ventures, remember that 80% of your cost is going to go into feeding. If you can't feed the animals, don't start. But yes, there are some things you can substitute that make the feed a bit cheaper. But as I said, time and space. Time and space.
All right. So as I was saying, now I'm keeping the females ones, but there's no male for me to cross it. So, all right.
So let's talk after this. Maybe tomorrow you can send me a message on the WhatsApp line, and then we can talk a bit more. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
I see Seidu saying having cattle, goats, and sheep on the farm, good idea or bad idea? If you have enough space, it's a great idea. They are all ruminants. Generally, they eat the same feed, and your goats and sheep will give you quicker income as you are waiting for the cows to mature. And when the cows do mature, you have bulk money at once. So I think it's a great idea if you have the space. And then your workers you are able to combine workers on some of those things. Okay, let's take Moses. Let's get Moses, and then we will take, let me see if there's another hand up on this side. Okay, so we'll take Moses, and then we will take our closing remarks, and then we will ask everybody to kindly turn on their cameras and wave for us to take a picture for our training, and then we will be done. Okay, Moses, can we get your question, please?
Yes. No, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good. Let me take this opportunity to appreciate you for this great teaching you've given us this evening. Yes, my question is just a brief one. I want to know whether when you are considering to go into particular animal farming, do you take into consideration the weather condition? Because I see that we are all in Ghana here, but the weather is not the same. So maybe the animals that may survive in the southern part of the country might not be the same animals that will survive here. So I don't know if there is, if you can give a clarification in what type of animal to consider when you are bringing them to the part of the north here. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Mhm. Moses, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes it's not even the type of the animal. Sometimes it's the particular breed and what they can endure. For instance, our Jalonki sheep, the Jalonki sheep do better in Ghana and especially down south than the Sahelian sheep, even though the Sahelian are bigger, because the Sahelian ticks gets to them, hot water issues, and so on. So you need to look for, first of all, you need to find out whether that particular animal you want to raise does well in that area. And secondly, even within the animal, you must look for the breed of the animal that does better than the other ones. So if you are in a very wet place, goats don't do too well in wet places. So you would have to look at all of that. Ducks don't do very well in dry places. Chickens like cooler places. And then if you realize that you still want to raise those animals because maybe there's market, then you now must look at how to modify the environment. So what some people do is that they have sprinklers within their sheds. Some people, even when it comes to grazing the animals at particular times, they do evening to night grazing so that the animals are confined in the shade during the daytime, and in the evening they go out. So there are ways of modifying the environment for the various animals if you cannot, if you just have to go on with that particular animal. So that's another thing you can do. Let me check the chats to see if we have any questions. Are there any spirituality behind the rearing of ducks? No. But for some reason, some people believe that they are spirit, but for ducks, there's nothing spiritual about ducks. Okay. So we've already gone 22 minutes over the time. Alisa, let me ask you to unmute. Are there any housekeeping things you want to mention to us? And then we'll take a picture. And then for the picture, we just want to all turn on our cameras, smile. And so, Alisa, you can unmute if there's something. Ahmed
Okay,
and Justice, you can type your question in the chat.
so thank you, Dr. Mogre. I think you've done an awesome job. Well done. Dear participants, you notice the slide on the upcoming training. So once we have your details, as in email addresses, we would be sharing, and WhatsApp numbers, we'll be sharing the advertisement for those trainings. Most of them are paid, and there are still a few free ones that you can join. So we look forward to sharing that information with you and hoping that you would also forward it to as many people as possible now that you've seen what our trainings are like. And I think each training gets better than the previous one. So be rest assured that you get your money's worth. So I'd encourage you to sign up when we share those trainings. So thank you for your participation. We are so grateful you stay through to the end, and we wish you all the best. Yeah. So over to you.
All right. So please, can we kindly turn on our cameras briefly and just wave very briefly so that we at least see our faces and realize, yes, it's good. Doc, it's good to see you here. When your lecturer shows up for your talk,
Hey.
it's a good one. So please just turn it on. Let's see our faces briefly so that we can. Thank you so much for being a part for this. This is us trying to give back and share some information out there to help us be better farmers, avoid mistakes, go on to produce more for the country and keep going. So please, also you can follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page where we drop information. We are yet to put up a YouTube channel where we may be putting some clips of some of our training out there. So God bless you all for being with us. We are extremely grateful. Take good care of yourselves. And till the next time we meet, bye bye.